Madison Square Garden, New York City, September 7th, 2001. The air crackled with electric anticipation as 20,000 souls pressed together in the darkened arena, their collective breath held in suspension. It was the second of two sold-out shows for Michael Jackson's 30th anniversary celebration, a monumental tribute marking 3 decades of solo brilliance. The world's eyes were fixed on this stage, this moment, as the king of pop prepared to reclaim his throne after years of relative seclusion. The first night had already become the stuff of legend, with appearances by Whitney Houston, Liza Minnelli, and a reunited Jackson 5 that had reduced grown men to tears. But this second night promised something more, something undefined that hung in the air like the promise of rain on a summer evening. Something no one could have predicted. Outside, New York pulsed with its familiar rhythm, oblivious to the collision of musical titans about to occur within these hallowed walls. Inside, time seemed suspended as the crowd waited, cell phones gripped in sweaty palms, ready to capture whatever magic might materialize before them. The lights dimmed further, and 20,000 voices fell to whispers, then to silence. The kind of silence that feels physical, that presses against your skin and makes you aware of your own heartbeat. 20,000 heartbeats, synchronized in anticipation. And then light, explosive, blinding light as the stage erupted and Michael appeared, materializing as if from another dimension, his slim figure silhouetted against a backdrop of flames and stardust. Gold-embroidered military jacket catching fire with every movement, his body electric with the supernatural energy that had defined him since childhood. The opening bars of Billie Jean sent the crowd into hysteria, that instantly recognizable bass line threading through the arena like a current of pure electricity. Michael moved with liquid precision, each gesture deliberate, yet seemingly effortless, defying the limitations of the human form as he had done for decades. His feet barely seemed to touch the ground as he glided across the stage, commanding the attention of every pair of eyes in the massive space. Some in the front rows were already overcome, hands pressed to mouths, tears streaming unchecked down faces. Security guards, hardened by years of crowd control, found themselves transfixed, forgetting for moments their professional duties as they watched a master at work. The performance built like a gathering storm, Michael's voice soaring over the instrumental breaks, his body becoming the physical manifestation of the music itself. And then, as the song reached its crescendo, something changed. A subtle shift in Michael's demeanor, almost imperceptible to those who didn't know him well. His eyes darted to stage left, noticing something, or someone, the audience couldn't see. For a heartbeat, just one, his movements faltered. The perfectionist in him would never allow a true misstep, but those closest to the stage saw it. That momentary break in concentration, that flash of recognition in his eyes. What happened next would be recounted in thousands of social media posts, news articles, and fan forums for years to come. Michael raised a gloved hand, and the music began to fade. The dancers, consummate professionals, adapted instantly to this unplanned deviation, slowing their movements and looking to their leader for direction. A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. This wasn't part of the carefully choreographed show they had expected. Michael stepped forward to the edge of the stage, his microphone still clutched in his right hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice soft yet somehow filling every corner of the massive arena. "Tonight is about celebration." The crowd roared their agreement, though confusion still tinged their enthusiasm. "Tonight is about music." Another wave of cheers. Michael stood still now, his chest rising and falling with exertion, but his posture regal, commanding. And when we talk about music, when we talk about innovation and genius, there are few names that stand alongside. He paused, and in that pause, a collective intake of breath as the audience sensed something momentous approaching. I've seen him in the wings, watching our show, and I can't allow that. I cannot allow him to just watch. Michael's voice took on a new urgency, his words slightly rushed as if he himself couldn't believe what he was about to do. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome to this stage Prince. The crowd erupted in disbelief and ecstasy. Screams, gasps, the thunderous sound of 20,000 people coming to their feet at once. The name, that single royal moniker, echoed through Madison Square Garden like a spell being cast. Prince, the Purple One, the only artist whose enigmatic presence and musical genius were mentioned in the same breath as Michael's own. For decades, the press had pitted them against each other, fabricating a rivalry that fed tabloid headlines and music industry gossip. Two intensely private, boundary-pushing artists reduced to competitors in a race neither had agreed to run. Some claimed they despised each other. Others insisted they secretly collaborated. The truth, as always, lay somewhere in the complicated middle, a relationship of professional respect tinged with the natural wariness of two alpha talents occupying the same rarefied air. And now, somehow, they were about to share the same stage. The crowd's roar continued unabated as security personnel conferred urgently through headsets. Stage managers darted back and forth in the wings. The band members exchanged glances of shock and excitement. For several long moments, nothing happened. The crowd's cheers began to falter slightly, uncertainty creeping in. Had Prince declined? Was this an elaborate joke? Michael remained at the front of the stage, his hand extended toward the wings, waiting with the patience of someone accustomed to creating moments of historical significance. And then movement. A diminutive figure emerged from the shadowy recesses of stage left. Even before he stepped into the light, the crowd knew. That distinctive silhouette, the aura of controlled flamboyance that preceded him like a herald, it could only be Prince. He walked slowly, deliberately toward Michael, dressed in a purple suit so dark it appeared almost black until the stage lights caught the fabric just so, revealing its true royal hue. No entourage, no fanfare. Just Prince, a guitar slung casually over his shoulder, walking with the quiet confidence of a man who had nothing to prove to anyone. The crowd's reaction was physical, a wall of sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of Madison Square Garden. People were jumping, screaming, clutching at strangers' arms and shoulders in their excitement. In the VIP section, celebrities who had paid thousands for the privilege of attendance stood open-mouthed, as starstruck as any teenager. Lenny Kravitz, seated near the front, later told reporters he felt his soul leave his body at that moment. Madonna, another first-row VIP, was seen with tears streaming unchecked down her face. 20 feet apart, then 10, then 5, Michael and Prince approached each other like cautious royalty from rival kingdoms. The tension was palpable, electric. Two icons, each accustomed to being the most magnetic presence in any room, now sharing the same oxygen, the same spotlight. When they finally stood face to face, the contrast was striking. Michael, taller, dressed in gold and black, his movements fluid and graceful even in stillness. Prince, compact and coiled like a spring, purple-clad with eyes that missed nothing. For one breathless moment, they simply looked at each other, acknowledging 1,000 unspoken words in a single glance. The music had stopped completely now. 20,000 people held their breath. Then Michael smiled, that famous childlike smile that transformed his entire face, and extended his hand. Prince looked at the offered hand for what seemed an eternity, but was likely only a second or two. The crowd watched, motionless, as decades of rumored rivalry hung in the balance. Then, with a smile that matched Michael's own in warmth, if not in innocence, Prince took the offered hand. The roar that followed was deafening, primordial in its intensity. People would later swear they didn't just hear it but felt it in their bones, in their teeth, in the soles of their feet. Security guards would report that the vibration of the crowd's response registered on equipment designed to monitor structural integrity. But neither Michael nor Prince seemed to notice the crowd's reaction. They stood center stage, hands clasped between them, locked in a moment of mutual recognition that transcended the spectacle around them. Michael leaned forward and whispered something in Prince's ear, words lost to history, though countless fans would later claim to have read his lips. Prince nodded, his expression unreadable to all but Michael. Then, without warning, Prince unslung his guitar and held it before him like an offering. The crowd, somehow, found new reserves of volume. Michael stepped back, hands raised in a gesture that was half surrender, half invitation. He turned to the audience, microphone raised. "I don't play guitar," he said, his voice carrying a rare note of humility that only endeared him further to the frenzied crowd. "But he plays it like no one else in this world." With that, he gestured to his band, and the familiar opening notes of Purple Rain began to fill the arena. If this moment was going to be legendary, both men seemed to understand it needed legendary music to match. Prince closed his eyes for a moment, absorbing the sound, feeling the rhythm. Then his fingers found the strings, and magic happened. The notes he coaxed from his instrument weren't simply played. They seemed to materialize in the air, tangible as rain. Michael stepped back, content for perhaps the first time in his professional life to cede the spotlight. He watched Prince with visible admiration, nodding in appreciation at particularly skillful runs. The crowd, having passed through shock into a state of euphoric disbelief, sang along with every word. 20,000 voices joined as one, creating a chorus that threatened to drown out even Prince's masterful guitar work. If this story moves you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel as we continue to bring you the most extraordinary moments from the lives of musical legends. As Purple Rain built toward its emotional climax, something remarkable happened. Michael, who had been content to watch from the side, stepped forward again. Without a word, he began to dance. Not his usual choreographed perfection, but something more organic, more responsive. A physical interpretation of Prince's guitar solo that honored the music while remaining quintessentially Michael. It was a dance of appreciation, of acknowledgement. Prince, eyes now open, watched Michael's movements with the same admiration Michael had shown his guitar work. The two artists, each responding to the other's genius in their own language. Dance and music, movement and sound. A conversation without words that spoke volumes to everyone privileged enough to witness it. As the song reached its final, soaring notes, Michael returned to Prince's side. The crowd, many openly weeping now, roared their approval. Strangers embraced, overcome by the sheer emotional power of what they were witnessing. In the press section, hardened music journalists who had seen everything the industry had to offer stood slack-jawed, suddenly reminded why they had fallen in love with music in the first place. When the final note faded, there was a moment of perfect silence. Not the silence of 20,000 people being quiet, but the profound absence of sound that follows something so beautiful it temporarily robs you of the ability to respond. Then chaos. Beautiful, joyous chaos as the crowd released their collective emotion in a tsunami of sound. Michael and Prince stood side by side, neither speaking, neither needing to. The moment had transcended words. After several minutes of unrelenting applause, Michael finally raised his hands, asking for quiet. The crowd reluctantly complied, hungry for whatever might come next. "Thank you, my brother," Michael said simply, turning to Prince. Prince nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Then, in a gesture that would be analyzed and discussed for years afterward, Prince removed a purple silk handkerchief from his breast pocket. With deliberate movements, he folded it into a precise square and handed it to Michael. Michael accepted it with the gravity the gesture deserved, tucking it carefully into his own pocket, over his heart. It was a small moment, intimate almost to the point of being private, yet witnessed by 20,000 pairs of eyes. A token exchange between equals, between rivals turned momentary allies, between two men who understood better than anyone else in the world the burden and the blessing of extraordinary talent. Prince then quietly left the stage as he had entered it. No fanfare, no extended goodbye, just a nod to the crowd, a last look at Michael, and he was gone, leaving the audience to wonder if what they had just witnessed had been real or some collective hallucination born of hope and music and New York City magic. Michael watched him go, the purple handkerchief still visible in his pocket. Then, with the consummate professionalism that had defined his career, he turned back to his audience. "The show must continue," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion of the preceding moments. And continue it did, though everyone present knew they had already witnessed the highlight, not just of the evening, but perhaps of a lifetime of concert-going. Hours later, as the final notes of the concert faded and the audience reluctantly began to disperse, the energy in Madison Square Garden remained at an almost supernatural level. People moved slowly toward the exits, phones clutched in hands as they tried to put into words what they had just experienced. Outside, in the New York night, rumors were already spreading. Bootleg recordings, grainy and distorted but still powerful, began circulating online within hours. Music critics who had been present started filing reviews that read more like religious testimonies than professional assessments. In a small museum in downtown Minneapolis, a curator received a late-night call. A purple handkerchief would need a display case, climate control, proper lighting. It was coming home, back to Prince's City, but it was coming with a story now, a story of two kings who, for one night, shared a kingdom and found it big enough for both. The handkerchief would be delivered personally by Michael Jackson's team, with specific instructions for its care and display. From one legend to another, the accompanying note would read in Michael's distinctive handwriting. "For one night, we made magic together." Visitors to the museum today still pause longest at this display. A simple square of purple silk, slightly faded now, but representing a moment when rivalry gave way to respect, when competition yielded to collaboration, when two incomparable talents acknowledged what fans had always known, that greatness recognizes greatness, that true legends need not diminish others to secure their own legacy. If this video brought back memories or moved you in any way, please take a moment to like it and subscribe to our channel. Your support allows us to continue sharing these remarkable moments in music history. For those who were there that night in Madison Square Garden, no video, no recording, no written account could ever fully capture what it felt like to be in that room, to breathe that air, to witness that unrepeatable convergence of time and talent and circumstance. But the handkerchief remains, silent, simple, eloquent in its understatement. A purple square of silk that once passed from one king's hand to another's, carrying with it all the unspoken words, the mutual respect, the shared understanding of what it means to live a life beyond ordinary boundaries. And sometimes, if you look at it just right, in just the right light, you might imagine you can still hear the music, the impossible, improbable, unforgettable sound of two legends finding harmony at last.